My name is Jeff Morgan. I am from Dallas, Texas. I'm putting out this video in response to a video that I put out very recently that has gotten some feedback that has not been completely positive. Some people have asked questions about my motive for putting it out. It pertained to the testimony of Josh Jaros on House Bill 3187 in Austin on April the 26th, 2021. First off, Josh Jaros and I go way back to March of 2017. I met him at an equal shared parenting rally down in Austin, videotaped him, his testimony is out. I supported Josh many times when he was testifying, either in front of committees or when he was in jail, whatever it took place. I was a very big supporter of Josh. If you look up on YouTube, Jeff Morgan, Josh Jaros, you'll probably find at least half a dozen videos, if not more, regarding my support for Josh. Even when he was thrown in jail, I was out there. I was one of the leading voices speaking on his behalf. So as most people know about me, my involvement in this whole issue about seeking parental rights happens to go back to the issue of no-fault divorce, unilateral no-fault divorce. When I went through a unilateral no-fault divorce, a divorce against which I had no defense, a divorce which had a predetermined outcome, and when I found out that the state would not take any evidence into account that it was a predetermined outcome, nothing I could do, I decided at that point in time that after I got healed, I was going to change the laws. To me, the idea of having the state come in and destroy a marriage for any reason, for no reason. Your spouse can file a lying complaint against you. Your spouse can commit perjury. It does not make a difference. A divorce will be granted. Your family will be destroyed. And I saw this as being the #1 issue that we need to face. I also saw that the church was very silent about the issue. I went to pastors, I went to other people. One pastor, actually my former father-in-law, I felt he acted extremely treacherously. I won't go into all those details right now. It's still something that I'm going to be talking about in the future. I went to churches acted helpless. And this was a shame. That's when I started to see more and more that the church had completely failed its people and had also failed society by not speaking out about the issue of unilateral no-fault divorce. A couple of years after that, I was watching my grandchildren. I was watching them up to 5 times a week. We were very, very close. And then a second thing happened where CPS, the Children's Protective Services, got called on my daughter. Somehow in the midst of all of this, I got blamed for filing a report. The reality was that I was the one who basically saved my daughter from having her children taken from her. But my former wife and people on her side of the family used that as an opportunity to malign me, and since then I have not seen my grandchildren for 6 years. We were very, very close. Anybody knows that when I've gone to equal shared parenting events, I've talked about it from the issue of grandparents, because once you erase a parent from somebody's life, you also erase the entire side of the family. Grandparents, aunts, uncles. In some instances, you even have brothers and sisters being erased from each other. So that's how I got involved in this. The first thing was, though, I didn't have any clue about some of the issues pertaining to equal shared parenting. I didn't know anything about it, like most people. I went through a system. I got beaten up enough, but not like many of you have. I don't know if I would have been able to survive it had I gone through some of the stuff that you have. But at the same time, I got beaten up enough to feel that I could recover, and once I was able to be healed, I was going to fight back. So that's when I started to meet people that talked about equal shared parenting. My one reservation with equal shared parenting is this, is that when you have a divorce that takes place, a forced divorce against somebody's will, that person who is being victimized should not be re-victimized by the state. So, and this is a case that even Josh is very familiar with, because his ex-wife, as he mentioned just the other day, his ex-wife was the one who basically went out and was having an affair on him and then filed for no-fault divorce under the guise of insupportability. Insupportability was a lie. Adultery should have been the reason. Because of insupportability, the divorce was granted against Josh. There was no defense against him that he could lodge against the divorce. I talked with Josh about the whole situation. He said he would have done anything possible to save his marriage. As a result of that, Josh ended up having to spend thousands of dollars to get 50-50 shared parenting, which, as I understand, he has right now. Josh also spent 6 months in jail because supposedly he was not paying child support. And at that point in time, when he was taken into jail, I was probably one of the most vocal people on his behalf. That is a little bit of our relationship. Last year in July, we were down at Houston and we were trying to get the GOP platform changed. We're both Republicans, both conservative. I was addressing things from the issue of no-fault divorce. Our current Republican platform at that time said that we were urging the legislature to repeal no-fault divorce. I got the resolution changed to say unilateral no-fault divorce. I don't like the issue of no-fault divorce, but if there are two people who are in a marriage and there are no children involved, and they say, hey, we just want to move on with our lives, whatever, and it's mutual, I don't see, even though I may not like it, I don't see how we as a state can oppose that necessarily. There are some other things you could say, but by and large, you really can't oppose that. But when you have a situation that you have unilateral no-fault divorce, forced divorce, divorce on demand, divorce for any reason, divorce for no reason, there is a predetermined outcome that once you file the petition, you're going to get the divorce. And usually, as many people know, the person who files the petition for divorce, not only does he or she win the divorce, but often because he or she has prepared more thoroughly than the other spouse, they get often more of the assets, they often get the children, they may get child support, they may get as what some people call cash and prizes. There is something completely unjust about that, and as Cecilia Wood said the other day, marriage is a fundamental right, divorce is not. Marriage is a fundamental right. We have a fundamental right to get married, and we also have a fundamental right to keep our marriage intact. When the state of Texas, or when any state, allows for unilateral no-fault divorce, they are depriving us of the fundamental right. What I've said was this, is that when you look at what's happening with no-fault divorce in our country, that has been in existence only for a little bit over 50 years right now, that is the snake, the head of many problems. Once we get rid of no-fault divorce, a lot of these other problems will disappear or be minimized. Forced divorce, divorce on demand, is actually what Vladimir Lenin imposed upon Bolshevik Russia to help destroy that society, to help make it ripe for communism. His ideology, his philosophy behind it was this: destroy the family, destroy society. And that's what he did. Within 10 years, there were such ravages that took place on society that the communists were debating, what do we do with the issue of no-fault divorce? Another 10 or 15 years later, they actually started to make people prove that divorce had to have a reason. You could not just file no-fault divorce, because they found out that no-fault divorce had such devastating consequences on the children that they really had no raw materials to work with to make them good little communists. So after the communists destroyed the family, destroyed the children, then they had to start to rebuild the family and rebuild the children so they could make good little communist robots. So this is the issue that was being discussed on April the 26th, 2021. House Bill 3187 was the one that Josh spoke on. Now, prior to that, there was House Bill 3188. And basically, this was a bill that just said that unilateral divorce, unilateral so-called no-fault divorce, based on the grounds of insupportability, should be repealed, should be abolished in the state of Texas. And it should be abolished in the state of Texas. Insupportability, nobody knows what that means. Insupportability, as Josh Giarros knows personally, is used as a lie from one spouse to actually cover up his or her transgressions against the marriage, and often gets rewarded for that. So the state of Texas rewards the person, in many instances, who files for divorce, gives them the children, gives them the share of the assets, and there is no defense. It is a predetermined outcome. 3188 was first. After that came 3187. The premise behind 3187 was this: we'll say that no-fault divorce is not repealed in the state of Texas. If no-fault divorce is not repealed, all 3187 said is that the spouse against whom the unilateral no-fault divorce was filed against, if he or she was not in agreement with the divorce, that he or she would have the ability to submit a plan to the state to talk about the division of assets, and that would have to be considered. When it came down to the children, the idea was this: there is the rebuttable presumption that the best interest of the child is to have their residence with the parents who did not file for divorce. That's it. It was a rebuttable presumption. The same thing that we're trying to apply for, or that we're trying to press for in House Bill 803. There is a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 equal share parenting. It is a rebuttable presumption. So the rebuttable presumption of 3187 was that if a spouse files for a no-fault divorce based on insupportability, that the rebuttable presumption is that the person who did not want the divorce, did not agree to the unilateral no-fault divorce, had a rebuttable presumption that it was the best interest of the children to live with him or with her. That's it. That's what the issue was about. And also too, that they were able to protect themselves as far as the division of assets. Anybody who's gone through a no-fault divorce knows that usually the person who has to respond gets plundered, gets almost raped to some degree. Unilateral no-fault divorce as it is right now is being raped hard. If you have something where you have like 3187, House Bill 3187, which would have helped to protect the innocent spouse. The innocent spouse is still being raped, but being raped gently. That's the only difference between the two. And so my position has been, as everyone knows, get rid of no-fault divorce, and from there, most divorces have to become fault-based divorce unless two people agree. If there's mutual consent and there are no children involved, that's not a problem. If there is mutual consent and there are children involved, my feeling is this: the state should still try to keep the marriage together, should provide alternatives, because marriage is not just a private institution. Marriage is a public institution and it has societal impacts. When we talk about the impacts of fatherlessness on society, they're very well known. We've talked about children. They grow up, and if they're girls, they are more likely to get pregnant out of wedlock. They're more likely to have abortions. If it's your son, they're more likely to join a gang. They're both more likely to have alcohol addiction or tobacco addiction. They're more likely not to finish high school. They're more likely not to go to college. They're more likely to have mental problems, physical problems, all sorts of problems. They may have a problem with their faith, because here you talk about people that maybe their parents were Christians, they get a divorce, and that never should have happened in their situation. So there are many, many issues, and we all know this regarding the issue of fatherlessness. But if you go back to the issue of fatherlessness, you also have to go back to the issue of broken families. We've tried to whitewash this issue way too long and just talk about the issue of fatherlessness, which is a big problem, just as the issue of motherlessness is a big problem. But the best interest of the child, in my opinion, the way that I present it, the way that I defend it, is that the child should be raised in an intact home with his or her natural mother and father, period. That's it. In almost every instance, that is the best interest of the child. The state should have no ability to come into a marriage because somebody's filing for a divorce and start to rearrange assets, should start to be able to apportion children here or apportion children there. I don't even think the state should have jurisdiction over that. I think it's prejudicial against parents who are getting a divorce that the state suddenly thinks that they now have rights and obligations to come in and to destroy the family even further. It is an opportunity for divorce attorneys and others to plunder the family of their assets, and also to create ongoing, long-standing problems that they will also continue to profit from, because once the tensions are there, that will continue to be exacerbated until maybe they cease sometime in the future. So when it came down to House Bill 3187, I was for the bill, and Josh Jaros got up there and Josh Jaros testified against the bill. My complaint with Josh is that, number one, he either was ignorant of what the bill really talked about, or number two, he didn't read the bill, or number three, he intentionally lied about the bill, because everything Josh started to talk about was not anything that the bill addressed. The bill did not say, if you file for no-fault divorce, you never get to see your father, or you never get to see your mother. That is not what it said. It was a rebuttable presumption that the best interest of the child would be to live with the parent against whom the divorce was filed. What's wrong with that? It helps to protect the innocent victim. And it would have actually helped Josh in his case. And this is where I think Josh was more than a little bit hypocritical, because Josh knows. Because Josh has had to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get 50-50. Josh spent 6 months in jail because of not being able to pay, or not choosing to pay, child support. And I'm not sure. People have said, Jeff, you shouldn't have done this. But I will tell you this, from the people that I've talked with, because I talked with people prior to putting this out, I had basically 100% support that I should do that because of what's been going on here. What some people don't realize is that last year we had a bill that would have helped military children. It would have helped them to be to have access to both parents. And it's pretty much the consensus among the people that know very well what took place that the person who killed the bill was Mr. Jaros. And there are people that have said this to me in the past. I've not wanted to believe it. I've defended Josh when he's been in difficult situations. I'm not sure whether I've been used or not. I don't talk with Mr. Jaros right now to actually know what the situation was. But last year when we were down at Houston, Josh, we were staying at a place that Mr. Stuart McMullen had rented out, I believe. And he came in, and I was surprised at the way he was attacking me over the issue of no-fault divorce. So to me, I was very shocked that he came after me that way, did not give me an opportunity to defend my position. And then later on defriended me and a bunch of other things, and he has his agenda. I believe, and this is my opinion, it's just my opinion, but I'm also joined in my opinion by a number of people, that Josh almost wanted to be the face of the equal shared parenting movement, perhaps to have his name attached to the bill, perhaps to become famous. I don't know that for a fact. Josh can defend himself on that if he wants to. But I do know that on April the 26th, when I went down to see him, one of the first things I did, he was sitting in, I think it was a second row on the left-hand side. I went up to see him, shake his hand, and Josh didn't want to have anything to do with me. And, you know, eventually he shook my hand, but there was the big scowl on his face. But what he did with 3187, it was treacherous, it was betrayal beyond belief, in my opinion. We may not agree on everything, and we should not agree on everything, perhaps. I know a lot of people don't agree with me on the no-fault divorce issue, but you do not sabotage the entire team because of your beef. If you don't like it, testify on a bill. Do not testify in such a way that Ana Maria Ramos, who is a divorce attorney, applauds Josh Jaros and thanks him for his wonderful testimony. It was an act of betrayal, and I defend myself in what I've said regarding Josh, the video that I put out about Josh. There's a lot more that could be said. If Josh would like to reach out to me, I would be very glad to talk with him about the issue. I'd be glad to talk with him about the issue with other people around. Josh has my phone number. There have been times when Josh was driving across the state at 1 or 2 in the morning, and he needed somebody to talk with because he was falling asleep at the wheel. I happened to be up. I talked with him for an hour and a half or so, just to keep him awake so that he would not fall asleep at the wheel. Again, when he was in prison, I was the one who defended him very forcefully and very vigorously. When I found out afterwards that perhaps everything that I was led to believe may not have been the case, it is what it is. I still have the videos up. You can still look at it. Just go to YouTube and put in Jeff Morgan, Josh Jaros, and you'll see that I was very much behind him. I think Josh has a lot of talents. I think Josh is a great speaker. I've watched him. I like Josh. But within this movement, we have people that sometimes betray the movement for the sake of themselves, to make themselves look good. For myself, to be honest with you, I don't care whether it's me or whether it's anybody else that gets any credit. I will know that I had a portion. I will have at least picked up a sledgehammer and taken a few blows at the foundation. I don't think I'm going to be the person that's going to knock it down, but I will do everything that I can. And I will be relentless in it. I am not going to stop because I'm fighting for this, not merely for myself. In fact, not for myself at all. How's it going to help me right now? I'm fighting for this because I do not want to see this wicked system around for my grandchildren. That's the reality. And I spend a lot of time at it. Everything I've gone at my own expense. I've gone at my own time. When I take videos, I go back, I edit them down. I've done that because I think the movement is that important. When you destroy the family, you destroy society. And Josh, as a Christian, should know, and Josh actually as a Christian should understand and believe that the fact that divorce is even forbidden, except for very few reasons in the scripture. If Josh wants to be a Christian, let him adopt the Christian perspective. I am sick and tired of Christians. I am sick and tired of churches waffling on this issue. Oh, there's nothing we can do about it. Preach the gospel. Marriage is supposed to be the symbol of the living relationship between Christ and the church. So I said what I said regarding, I put out on the video what I put out. I do not, I obviously will stand behind what I've said. My hope and intent is that Josh would get his life right. I think Josh has a lot of great strengths. There have been some very concerning issues, not just to me, but to a lot of other people. There's a lot of things that I see and people see about me too. That's fine. That's okay. I would rather people tell me directly. But when you have people come and tell you and you dismiss them because somehow you think you have a better way, and that's it, and you're not paying attention to anybody else, that's fine too. But when you start to sabotage somebody else so that you can make yourself look good, whether it's with 3187 or whether it was in the previous session with the bill that we had for military children, I think that needs to stop. There are people in the movement that will betray others to make themselves look good. I'm not even saying that Josh did this intentionally, but I do think that what he did was an act of treachery, and I hope that Josh makes things right. Again, Josh, this is my plea to you. You know I've meant that I've tried to reach out to you, and I understand that you want to, from my perspective, I think you want to be the big person. I have nothing in it. Whether I'm recognized or not, it's immaterial to me. People know what I've done, and I'm not seeking anything for myself. I've always told people, if you need to throw me under the bus to make the movement go forward, throw me under the bus to make the movement go forward. We cannot let this stuff stand. This is state-sponsored destruction of families, and we need to stop it. And the stopping comes not just by saying we need shared parenting. Shared parenting for many is important. Children need access to both parents. But really what they need is to have both parents learning how to live together, learning how to love each other, and if they can't do that, at least tolerate each other. That the intact home is extremely important for children. Too long we have whitewashed the issue of divorce. We've whitewashed the necessity to have strong marriage. We've even said, hey, if I get her pregnant and we're not married, my opinion is this. I've seen this happen growing up. People got married. Why? Because that was for the best interest of the child. It was to have the marriage, because in that marriage, the children's needs were met with a mother and a father. If you're out there getting people pregnant before you're married, I would say first, stop. Take responsibility. And this is not just a male issue, and it's not just a female issue. Usually there are two willing parties. Not always, but usually there are two willing parties. Sometimes there is one party that's trying to seduce another. Sometimes there's one party that's trying to force it on another. Whatever the case, stop it. Because you have to look at every act, every sexual act, as the possibility of bringing a child into an existence. And if you bring the child into existence, you have to also care for that child. At that point in time, your responsibilities change. It's not just about you, it's about the children of the relationship, the children of the marriage, whatever it may be. And I'm not trying to abolish divorce. There are times that a divorce, as unfortunate and tragic as it can be, maybe is the only remedy that's available. But I am saying this, that we need to keep the ideal in place. We need to talk about the importance of family, the importance of marriage, the importance of extended family, the importance for our children, learning how to live together, learning how to love each other, learning how to tolerate each other, learning how to forgive each other, and learning how to be faithful to each other. So, Mr. Jaros, I think that you're a great dad. There's nothing against that whatsoever. But what I do think is that what you did on April the 26th, 2021, in your testimony, in which, yes, you got your accolades and your smooches and your kisses and love thrown to you by Ana Maria Ramos, a divorce attorney, I thought that was an act of treachery, and I hope that you will understand that. I have no hard feelings toward you, but I do very much feel what I felt, and I hope that the line is always open. You've got my number. Feel free to reach out. And for those people who were wondering why I put out the video, this was a much longer explanation than I anticipated, but that is the reality behind it. Anyway, thank you so much. And I wish everybody the best here as far as being able to see their children. And if you're in a struggling marriage, get help. Don't get divorced. Divorce does not solve issues. There may be sometimes it's necessary, but there are many places around that actually can help you through that. And one of the big things that nobody talks about is the counselor that you go to see. Make sure that you see a counselor that actually believes in the integrity of marriage. Because if you have a counselor that says, oh, you know what, you can always get divorced, you more than likely will get divorced. If you have a counselor that says, you know what, you can't get divorced, you need to stay married, that will probably more likely be the outcome. And again, when you put the selfish need of yourself or an adult over the needs of your children, in many instances that is just nothing but selfishness. Sometimes it's protective, but in many instances it is selfishness. Learn to get along together and learn to fight for families. And in a situation where there is forced divorce, as there is in the state of Texas, do something to protect the innocent spouse so that he or she is not plundered and, as I would say, forcefully raped against his or her will. Anyway, that's it. Thanks again so much.